And welcome, my friends, back from Christmas. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday with friends and family. And Kathleen and I certainly enjoyed ours. And we appreciate all the well wishes and prayers and Merry Christmas cards that we received. And we were quite busy, like I'm sure all of you were, and we didn't have a chance to respond to all of them. But thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's been a busy few days, not only with Christmas, but with the things that are going on in the world. And we're about to approach our new year of 2020. So let me know you can hear me okay and see okay. Let me know in the chat room. It's great to see everybody back here. Dr. Darnell, Andy, Jody, excuse me, Mark, Brenda, Pamela, and we're scrolling on up the list here. Deborah's here, and Eileen, I saw there she is. Eileen and Tamara. And Sharon was there first in with George. Okay, excellent. Doug Diamond from Diamond Digital Media joins us this evening again. All right, excellent. Thank you for the thumbs up in the chat room, and we'll proceed right along. Let's jump right in with Scripture right at the very beginning this evening, if we could, please. I listed a few to reference this evening, and I'm going to go ahead and begin with those relating to money. We are about to, sound like a Canadian, I'm getting closer and closer to the Canadian border. It's infectious. So 2020 is just about on board here, and I'm calling 2020 the year of digital transformation. That will be the topic and the title for the January issue of Entangled Magazine, and that's what we're going to introduce this evening as we kind of wrap up 2019. Digital transformation, and we've set the stage for that. So let's talk a little bit more about finances and money this evening. Matthew 6:2. When then you give money to the poor, do not make a noise about it, as the false-hearted men in the synagogues do, and in the streets, so that they may have glory from men. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward. That's reward to who? Those that are making the noise about it? Well, they're going to get a certain reward, aren't they? But those that give money and do not make a noise about it, they receive their reward from the Lord. Verse 3, but when you give money, let not your left hand see what your right hand does. And down to verse 19, verse 19 I believe it is. Let me see what I have here. I think it's chapter 19. Yes. Jesus said to him, if you have a desire to be complete, go, get money for your property, in other words, sell your property, and give it to the poor, and you will have wealth in heaven, and come after me. In other words, divest yourself of your belongings and follow me. And that's all we really need. Matthew 19:23. And Jesus said to his disciples, truly I say to you, it is hard for a man with much money to go into the kingdom of heaven. And verse 24 of Matthew 19, and again I say to you, it is simpler for a camel to go through a needle's eye than for a man with much money to go into the kingdom of God. It's a stumbling block. It gets in the way. It's that ego. It's that greed. That's what Satan preys upon in all the things that we have talked about regarding building of the blockchain system and the cryptocurrencies. And I've often referred to this next chapter and verse without citing the chapter and verse, and I thought I would do that this evening. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 19. And they will throw their silver into the streets, and their gold will seem unclean. Their silver and gold cannot save them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They cannot satisfy their appetites or fill their stomachs with wealth, for it became the stumbling block that brought their iniquity. Again, we've referred to that many times. We probably will again this evening. And the cover on our thumbnail for this evening's live stream is hearkening back to a couple of issues of Entangled Magazine where I've brought in the topic of Fritz Lang's movie Metropolis. It was a silent film, and one of our patrons sent this to me. I won't cite the name because I try to protect people's identity unless they say it's okay, but sent me this rather, shall I say, very artistic rendition of the movie poster Metropolis. And you can see the crosses, the crucifixes on one side, and what I would consider to be big business corporations and banks on the other side. And down below you have all of the hands of the elite that are worshiping this golden figure, this animatron, this AI robot from Metropolis. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the movie is from 1917. But the elite worship their false idol. So this is really totally apropos that we bring this in again tonight, because I may get into the AI discussion and blockchain as we get into talking about fintech, F-I-N-T-E-C-H, fintech, financial tech, the applications in the financial world. We won't get too deep in the weeds. That'll happen with the January issue of Entangled Magazine, where I provide you the details that I'm introducing to you this evening. But definitely we have laid the foundation for 2020 here in these live streams, talking about Libra, the new cryptocurrencies in general, and the blockchain infrastructure, and AI. All of these are converging together. They're coalescing together. All of them are coming to bear in 2020. Over in this next image, this is taken from an image in 1881 in Russia, a bank run sent to me by the same person that sent the Metropolis poster. This is an image of a bank run that took place in 1881, and you off to the far right side you see the banker sneaking in and slithering out of the bank under the protection of his hired gun police officer, while people are protesting and fainting and bemoaning the loss of their perceived wealth in the hands of the bankers. That all portends to what I've been talking about, that I believe is on the horizon, not to discourage us, not to cause fear, but so that we understand what's going on in the world. We're prepared for it spiritually, psychologically, mentally, physically, and as best we can economically. But the Lord will provide for us, as we have said here many, many times. It will be under the watchful protection of our Lord that all of this will happen. Okay, let's start. I have several articles. I've sent you many articles before the live stream this evening. This one I've shared with you a few live streams ago, but it's a good way to, again, maintain some continuity of the discussion, but also to refresh your memory. And we'll talk about fintech. So the article that I sent to you is, will the big banks be able to hold up against the fintech challenge? The legacy financial institutions are struggling as fintechs take over. Now, I've spoken quite a bit lately about creative destruction. That will also factor into the January issue of Entangled Magazine. Creative destruction, that factors into the financial disruption, the creative and purposeful disruption of the legacy financial institutions, meaning your average neighborhood bank and your national chain bank. Those are the legacy financial institutions. These are all slated to be destroyed Make no bones about it. Again, creative destruction is their philosophy, to do away with the legacy organizations, not just in financial, but in every sector of our lives. Those legacy foundational systems are all going away with the advent of blockchain and artificial intelligence. In a nutshell, very succinctly, there is a merging of AI and blockchain coming together in 2020. The most obvious manifestation will be Libra, but there are many other manifestations, and we will cover that throughout 2020, Lord willing, as long as we're here and as long as He provides the means and mechanism for Kathleen and myself to be able to research and report on your behalf. This is what we are going to be, unless other major events happen, other dominoes fall. We'll be focusing on the financial quite a bit in 2020 because this is the year for the major legacy institutions to be taken down. The technology's all in place. It's all targeting this, and it is targeting the millennials and the Generation Zers. So let's read a little of this article. The legacy financial services are trying desperately to gain a competitive edge over the innovative fintechs, despite having all the traditional advantages: network infrastructure, solid balance sheets, regulatory approvals, physical footprint, and established business relationships with the older generation. They still seem to be fighting a losing battle, and I would agree with this. This is driven by technology, folks, and the millennials and the Generation Zers have all been indoctrinated into technology, and technology being the new false idol, just like in the Fritz Lang movie. This is the false idol set up by the elite and bringing in the younger generations, fully indoctrinated into technology, and technology holding all the answers, the redemption for mankind. Fintechs, on the other hand, focus their services on the tech-enabled millennials and Generation Zers, who demand tailor-made services accessible to them on their smartphones, giving the best value of their money. And their explosive growth speaks volumes about the success of this model. Global venture capital funded deals topped $39 billion in 2018. More than a 100% increase over the previous year, spanning 1,707 deals, according to a CB Insights research. Now, I should note to you that this is an article coming to us through medium.com. Fasil Khan is the author of this article. Okay? Over the years, we have seen the big banks get even bigger with their money-making model off the customers. ATM fees, money transfer fees, foreign exchange fees, credit fees, and the list goes on. All of this added burden on the customers made them feel like banking is a privilege, not a service. With no alternative, however, they continued to get ripped off. Enter fintechs and a transformation in the financial landscape. Okay, this is the digital transformation, folks. I'm setting the stage for you for 2020. This is going to be the principal topic in the mainstream media. The principal topic even driving down to Joe Bag of Donuts. We're at 40,000 feet on Patch Air looking at the big picture, and we're seeing it unfolding. We can see it from that perspective unfolding well ahead of time, well ahead of the average person on the street. And even those that are in business, that are even in the financial sector, many of you patrons, friends of ours that have pointed out to us in past live streams that you have gone to your financial advisors and brought up the topic of Libra, for instance, and they claim that they don't know anything about it or know very little about it or that it will have very little impact. Okay, so there is an awful lot of obfuscation, purposeful covering up that is going on about what's going to unfold in 2020. And Kathleen and I are here to give you the early insights and the bigger picture of what's going to be rolling out this year. It is all financial transformation. And because our societies are so tied to our finances, I mean, that's an obvious given. When you disrupt, when you go through creative destruction of the financial sector, the systems, the legacy systems, that means everything in society likewise, concurrently, will change, right along with the financial system. Enter fintechs and a transformation in the financial landscape for the better. That's what they say. So how have the players like Revolut, okay, as in revolution, these are company names, players, Revolut, N26, Chime, Acorns, Moneyline, and others been able to beat the legacy financial system giants at their own game? The simple answer is innovation. Okay, that's the creative destruction. This is the philosophy, folks. When you hear the word innovation, it means they're destroying the legacy, bringing in the new, creative destruction. While the new entrants to the financial ecosystem were economically disadvantaged compared to the incumbent players, in other words, the new players didn't have a lot of money coming to the table, okay? To the incumbent players in the form of big banks, they had nothing to lose that could prevent them from implementing an industry disrupting strategy. Again, this is their philosophy, and this is being driven by the indoctrinated younger generations that are very comfortable with technology. Okay? So 2020 is going to be very disruptive, and I said about President Donald Trump when he was campaigning for the 2016 election that I labeled him as the agent of disruption. Here it is right in the article. Implementing an industry disrupting strategy. The fintechs have accumulated millions of customers in a very short span of time by adopting a three-pronged strategy. 1, introducing innovative products. 2, targeting the unbanked and reducing the sky-high service charges to a bare minimum or nothing, since they have no overheads to take care of, as do the original traditional banks. Okay? Remember, I asked you to take notes about 2 months ago when we were first talking about Libra. A note regarding transaction fees. That's the new gold mine. That's the new source of revenue. That's the new market sector that they want to capture market advantage, market share in. Transaction fees. Okay? Even though it says here that they're targeting the unbanked and reducing the sky-high service charges, those are for the previous ones I said. When we talk about transaction fees for next year, especially with Libra, we're talking about just buying and selling, normal everyday transactions that you're doing with your cryptocurrency, which I do firmly believe will be Libra as eventually the one world global currency. People with low credit scores or in far-off areas with no banking services or countries where the system is broken are their primary targets. This is a mobile-friendly model that has brought immense value proposition in the form of neobank applications. Those are new bank applications, okay? So when they talk about the underbanked and the unbanked, remember I brought all that to your attention in November in Entangled, and we've talked about that. That's again another thing to note on your notepad. The underbanked and the unbanked being the buzzwords, especially coming in 2020, the buzzwords to justify bringing in Libra, to justify the new financial technology applications. You see, they view the world as having at least a third of the world's population being unbanked or underbanked. That's a huge market opportunity. They want to capture that market share. And they're going to do it through the mobile-friendly financial technology applications. That's why I'm presenting it to you early on. So when you look at a new market opportunity of the underbanked, coupled with the transactions in a Libra-driven system of transactions for everything in the world, buying and selling, you put those two sectors together, and that is a brand new gold mine for the elite. Driven by greed. They're building for Satan this system of control that ultimately will require people to take the mark of the beast. I've said all along, the blockchain infrastructure has been built by greed, which is the target of Satan, to get his system built by man, putting the bars on the gilded cage of mankind. The traditional banks have been hard at work to ward off this competition in the form of fintechs, with partnerships, acquisitions, and their own digital services to target the younger market segment, with the former two have been relatively successful. The latter has fallen flat on its face. Okay, that's the digital services that they've not been able, the legacy banks have not been able to put into place. The biggest example is the sudden demise of JP Morgan's bank app, Finn, F-I-N-N, which was launched last year in June, touted as bringing fully digital banking experience, Finn by Chase. The app that was expected to bring a host of fintech features to capture the younger generation was supposed to evolve based on user feedback. As of now, all the customers of Finn have been transferred to the traditional Chase mobile app as it became a fintech roadkill. Some of the other big banking names who have dipped their feet in the fintech space with their own endeavors are Wells Fargo, Greenhouse, Citizens Bank, Citizens Access, MUFG's PurePoint, Bank Center's Rising Bank, and RBS's Metal. All of these projects are aimed at cutting down the influence of the ravaging fintechs, which has reduced the profits and the following of the legacy banks. It makes you wonder, though, if one of the biggest banks in the world, JP Morgan, could not sustain its shiny fintech app, how well are these banks going to fare, and more importantly, for how long? Okay, so let me jump back on camera here and answer that question. What are the legacy banks going to do? Well, I said in first introducing Libra that the legacy banks will not be left behind. Now, you may see the physical buildings close, your neighborhood branch bank close, but the banks aren't going away. Remember, I said they knew well ahead of time that Libra was coming. It was announced in June of this year, but they've known all along because the banking systems have been those that have been pushing the blockchain system behind the scenes, so they won't be left behind. This is problem reaction solution, again, playing out, standard modus operandi. It appears from this article, and there are many like it, that there's chaos and confusion and failure in the legacy banking world. Well, that's a problem. The reaction would be not the younger generation, but perhaps people my age and maybe a little bit younger that would say, well, gee, there should be a solution. I'm more comfortable working with a legacy bank. I want my Wells Fargo, my Bank of America, et cetera, okay? Well, what will the legacy banks do then? They'll offer, by demand, for a solution, they'll offer a solution. This is setting up, again, we're looking at it from the big picture, 40,000 feet on patch air. We can see that the legacy banks, they're not going to be left behind. They still have the largest financial clout in the markets. They will not be left behind. They'll say, you know, we've tried some of these applications and really didn't work. And there are a host of reasons that they'll cite that they didn't work. So what's the solution? You know what it is. They stir up the masses, even the younger, but certainly middle-aged and older, get them all stirred up, and they all want to demand a solution to the chaos that is purposefully created. And here comes Libra as the solution. You already know that. It's not hard to figure out. It's not hard to see. But I'm going to continue, as I'm doing this evening, giving you all of these foundational pieces to build this picture as we move into 2020. I want you to be ahead of the curve. I want you to understand what is coming upon the world and how that's happening. This is from a website called Plug and Play. Article by Anna Camarenia entitled 6 Startups That Will Shape the Future of Wealth Management. Okay? Lots of hedge funds, lots of financial advisory companies. Many of you have written me about your asset and wealth management advisors. So let's talk a little bit about that, because there are those of you that do have investments and you are concerned. You've written to me and asked what's going to happen to my investments. Now, neither Kathleen or myself are financial advisors. We certainly would never want to offer financial advice as if we're experts. I'm just sharing news items with you to show you the trend. I'm not dispensing financial advice, okay? So let's read from this. The financial services industry is being shaken by the tech revolution that is reshaping the world. And wealth and asset management are not strangers to this transformation. This industry has experienced a massive transformation since the economic crisis hit the markets. Higher regulation and compliance costs, different expectations from customers, or new incumbents are just some of the new challenges that financial institutions need to face. Amid this scenario, fintech startups have found the perfect breeding ground to grow. These companies are faster, closer to new generations of customers, and more flexible when change is needed to survive. In this article, we've chosen 6 startups related to wealth management that promise to change the way we do things. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through and cite the names of these. You can read through the article. I think I sent it to you before the live stream. First company, Cred, as in credibility, Cred, C-R-E-D. Cred helps financial institutions to offer the right financial product to the right client at the right time. That's their little spiel there. Okay, Cred is a business-to-business platform that, thanks to AI, okay, here it is, folks. Remember, AI, financial, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, Libra. AI is absolutely the cornerstone to this whole beast system functioning, okay? That's why I've spent so much time bringing to you all this information about AI, and I'm going to continue that in the January issue of Entangled, where I'm merging AI and financial in this upcoming first issue of 2020. So, thanks to AI, it's changing the way financial institutions acquire and engage clients in the investment advisory industry. Now, let me jump on to responsive.ai, and I've sent over the months many articles regarding responsive.ai from them. We help managers grow client wealth and loyalty by providing personalized and adaptive services at scale. Okay, when they say at scale, they're talking blockchain. It was inevitable that we added a few robo-advisors on the list. These tools are really changing the way wealth managers work and the way customers get in touch with them. Responsive.ai is not just another robo-advisor, though. Responsive is a hybrid wealth advisor solution for enterprises. We help managers grow client wealth and loyalty by providing personalized and adaptive service at scale. All right, let me explain what that means from the information that we've covered over 2019. When they talk about providing personalized and adaptive service at scale, that's pattern recognition. That's AI paying attention to you, your behavior, not just in the financial sector, but reaching out for data in social media, data through Google and other browsers and search engines. You see, AI, it's hungry for data. It grows based on data input. It has an insatiable appetite for data. So when you think that your wealth advisor is looking at personalizing an investment strategy for you, chances are, depending on the type of AI tools that they have, but chances are they're reaching out beyond the information you have personally provided to that wealth advisory firm. They're vetting you. They're reaching out for the data beyond what you've personally provided. And they're mining that data on the internet about you. This is the specter of big data. It's not only looking at your credit score and your activities in terms of credit, but it's looking at your banking records. It's looking at your transactional records when you go to the grocery store. It's reaching out and building a personalized and adapted approach, initially presenting itself as benevolent. But behind the scenes, the malevolent aspect to this data acquisition and building of a personal profile of you is it is a control mechanism of you. That's the 180 to it. Because the more they know about you, the more they can control you. The more they can pigeonhole you and define you and restrict you into what you are able to do with your life. And most of the control mechanisms are financial in our lives. Okay? Let's go to the next company, Bamboo, B-A-M-B-U. Our white label robo-advisor offers investors a natural and effortless experience in finding the right investment strategy for their clients' needs. When they say effortless experience, that sounds great on the front, makes it really convenient. But remember, we have said, Kathleen and I have beat this drum over and over about convenience. The more that they can do problem, reaction, solution on you, the more they can control you. The more that it appears on the surface to be effortless, an effortless experience, the more that they can make it appear convenient, the deeper they have you entrapped. Why is that? Because it's taking away your input. It's taking away your say-so. It's taking away your decision-making and putting it in the hands of an AI advisor or robo-advisor. And your human being you're sitting across the desk from at your investment firm or your bank is relying upon what this robo-advisor is saying and is told by upper management, by his employers, to go with what the robo-advisor, the approved robo-advisor, is saying. So the human becomes nothing more than a parrot, delivering to you what the AI says. What is mandated to be said to you by the owners of the financial institution who've bought into the AI system, who consider it to be their all-knowing God, and the human is just there to say, look, this system has analyzed you, it's analyzed the market, blah, 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 blah. This is what we recommend. And we make it really easy and very convenient for you. All you have to do is say yes and sign here. Now, millennials and Generation Zers, they thrive on instant gratification and convenience because that's what they're indoctrinated into. They're passive receivers of information. They're not critical thinkers. They don't want to put in the time and effort and labor to do their own research and make their own decisions. No, they want to go to somebody who's using technology and makes this an easy system. This is why you see these robo-advisor tech companies exploding, because it's convenient and it's instant. Okay? Sarwa, S-A-R-W-A. We help financial institutions differentiate and expand their reach to offer wealth advisory to the mass affluent and retail clients. Okay. We help financial institutions differentiate and expand their reach. That means they're data mining you. They're vetting you. Okay? And the wealth advisory to the mass affluent, that's who they're targeting, the wealthy, and also the retail clients. There's your transactional. Okay. Hand check. We offer financial institutions a unique and comprehensive set of data about their customers. Hand check. This Vienna-based company has a mission that looks simple, but it's definitely not. In short, they want to make payments easier and more convenient. With that in mind, they have developed a smart card that enables customers to store all their payments and loyalty cards on one certified MasterCard that has the same dimensions as any other card. The hand check card comes with a complementary that acts as a personal finance manager, where customers have all their spendings and loyalty cards in one place. Okay. The main benefit is the collection of all transaction and loyalty data that gives financial institutions a better understanding of their customers. Customers can channel all their existing cards through the hand check card, which gives financial institutions a unique and comprehensive set of data about their customers. Based on this, they can offer tailored services and products to their clients' needs, particular financial products and concierge services for high net worth clients. That all looks wonderful on the surface. But you and I know that behind this is the blockchain system, driven by AI, and we know from 40,000 feet where that's going. Scripture tells us where it's going. Ezekiel 7:19. They will throw their silver into the streets, and their gold will seem unclean. Their silver and gold cannot save them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They cannot satisfy their appetites or fill their stomachs with wealth, for it became the stumbling block that brought their iniquity. Simple. But all of these companies are running pell-mell forward in pushing their companies because they're all greedy. They don't understand what you and I do spiritually about what they're participating in. They're clueless. They have no perspective on what they're doing. Advice Robo. Our service leads to more customers, less risk, or both. Advice Robo eats risk for breakfast. That's their motto. This European startup was founded by Diederik von Thiel and Rosalie Steinkammer in 2013. They developed software for predictive risk services and technology. Now, Kathleen was sharing earlier in the chat room about geomancy and predictive analysis systems that we're going to share with you on Sunday. Remember, I said back in the September issue of Entangled in October, we talked about the golden nuggets of data, mining big data, finding those hidden patterns in massive quantities of data that produce patterns that they can recognize and mine that, and that the most valuable commodity on the planet is being able to predict the future. All of computing is based on geomancy. All of banking is based on it. Quantum mechanics, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, all of this and blockchain is based upon geomancy. It is all about predicting the future based upon pattern recognition, the mining of those golden nuggets of data. See, we've taken you all the way through this, all this year through Entangled Magazine and these live streams. We've been building and building and building and building, and now 2020 is about to launch. And all of this building process that we've done over this past year is coming to a head. I would encourage you to at least flip through this last 12 months of Entangled Magazine. Refresh yourself, because it tells you what's coming. We're doing our own predictive analysis, but we don't need geomancy. We have the Holy Spirit to do that guides all of us in increasing our knowledge to understand what's going on in the world, to understand how the beast system is being built and how it operates and what is coming. But their Advice Robo here says it right here: develop software for predictive risk services. That software is based in its ancient roots on divination, folks. It's just more sophisticated now. It says to increase acceptance rates for credit applications while keeping the risk level the same. Very benevolent. Artificial intelligence is the secret weapon powering their solutions. That's what they say right here in the article. They have an AI-based platform that combines data from structured and unstructured sources. That's labeled and unlabeled data. Again, we introduced this to you early in 2019. Labeled and unlabeled data. This is structured and unstructured sources. On this platform, Advice Robo aggregates, okay, let's use the verb, aggregates big behavioral data to credit score self-employed startup companies, millennial, and other thin file customer segments. Let's retrace this. I just said this before. Big behavioral data. We set all this up earlier this year for you. Understanding big data, identifying pattern recognitions of behavior. When they understand how you behave, they know how to predict your behavior. If they can predict your behavior, even beyond financial, if they can predict your behavior, then they can control you. Okay? Advice Robo is Europe's leading psychographic credit scoring company. The psychographic credit score measures financial attitude, motivation, and behavior of people through an online interview. The resulting score and profile support lenders in accepting thin files that they would otherwise reject. This leads to more customers, less risk, or both. That's what they claim. So look at this. This is replete with red flag language that we've presented to you this year. This is kind of the end of the year wrap up. That's why I keep being sort of retrospective here. The psychographic credit score. Okay, that's just your behavior. That's your psychological profile. Would you have ever imagined that your banker or your financial advisor would be looking into your psyche to develop a psychological profile on you, rather than looking at things like credit scores, employment history, things like that, bank account statements. No, they want to know how you operate psychologically. That's very intrusive. The psychographic credit score measures financial attitude. Oh, really? Motivation and behavior of people through an online interview. You see, they want to ask you specific questions, just like when you're applying for employment and you go through a behavior assessment test of multiples of questions, and questions that typically are reformulated, repackaged, but asking the same thing in a different way to see if you're trying to mislead the potential employer. But the point is these surveys, these online interviews, are looking at you psychologically. Okay. So, that's plug and play. That's just a taste, folks, of where things are going with respect to the financial transformation, the digital transformation. It's already underway, but it's going to be really manifesting in 2020. Let's look at what's going on in the rest of the world right now, presently. 6 countries on the brink of recession. This comes to us again from Medium.com, but goods and services. The global economy has slowed down to its lowest pace in 3 years. Now, I want to predicate this with don't be U.S.-centric when you hear me read this article. The U.S. economy has been propped up by the Federal Reserve with quantitative easing. And quantitative easing is putting more money, printing more money, putting more money in circulation and making credit easier to obtain. That's quantitative easing. What that means in a nutshell is they've been propping up the stock market. And over the last few weeks, even with the coverage of the impeachment of President Donald Trump that we've covered here in probably 3 live streams now, the markets have been roaring, very bullish, even in the face of possible impeachment. The markets ignore it. Why? Because there's so much money available. That's propping up the stock market. What does propping up the stock market means? It means that when you have more money, more credit, and you can risk that money by buying on margin in the market, or you can invest in futures, or you can invest in options, or you can purchase stocks or commodities outright because you have money to burn, so to speak, because it's easier to obtain in an atmosphere of quantitative easing. That inflates the bubble even further in the markets because more people are inputting money into the markets. That's how the market grows. The more that people are involved in the market, turning over their money or even their risk money, even their margin money into the markets, that inflates the market. It inflates the value of stocks and commodities that are being purchased. Because when there's an increase in demand reflected by the willingness of people to invest their monies, when that demand increases, the prices go up. The increase in price is the inflation of the market bubble. So, to be U.S.-centric is to be myopic in the face of what's going on in the rest of the world, and that's where I want to take you right now. A couple of weeks ago, I warned you to look at the rest of the world and what's going on when I first introduced the domino effect leading up to the global economic collapse due to the outbreak of war in the Middle East. And with that economic collapse, the debt reset scenario as another domino. And with the debt reset, we have the mark of the beast, revealing of the Antichrist, and the requirement for the mark of the beast to access that blockchain system. Those are the dominoes. So let's go through this. The global economy has slowed down to its lowest pace in 3 years. Global trade and investment have been weaker than expected at the start of 2019. The primary contagion impacting the global economy is the escalating U.S.-China trade war, Brexit uncertainty, EU-U.S. trade disputes, and rising debt levels. When I say the market is inflating and quantitative easing in the U.S., that is an example of rising debt levels in this country, in the United States, but it's happening globally. That's where we're headed here, folks. As a result, both the World Bank and the International Money Fund have downgraded their global growth forecast from 3.3 to 3.2% and from 2.9 to 2.6%. So that's the overall projections for growth is on a downward curve, is what they're saying. Some key economies around the world are on the verge of recession, raising uncertainties that a global economic slowdown could contract the U.S. economy as well. Many of the countries slowing down or on the edge of recession have a common problem. They are deeply reliant on exports of goods. This is not a great time to have an export-driven economy. Already, China posted the worst industrial output in 17 years, and the German economy shrank in Q2. As the economic slowdown adds up, there aren't many rescue ships to help. Thus, investors are escaping to the usual havens, government bonds and gold. A number of central banks like the U.S. Federal Reserve, South Korea, Indonesia, Ukraine, and South Africa are cutting interest rates to spur economic growth. In addition, China on August 5th allowed the yuan to weaken past 7 yuan to $1 US to promote its exports. So, I'm going to talk about China here in just a moment as it relates to its cryptocurrencies, and I sent you that article as well. What I just have read to you is problem, reaction, solution. They're setting the stage for all those dominoes that I just cited to you to fall, and to fall in rapid succession. They are disrupting, destroying, creative destruction, economies around the world already. This is setting the stage towards debt reset, just to put it succinctly, one of the dominoes. Germany, the Eurozone's largest economy in Q2, was down 0.1%, down from 0.4% in Q1. Germany is on the verge of recession, as its economy has experienced 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Germany is heavily dependent on manufacturing cars and other industrial goods to drive its economy. Being Europe's leading exporter and number 3 globally after China and the U.S., all was well until Donald Trump adds you and China to his list of trade adversaries. Orders from China dwindles and the Brexit brouhaha continues. Remember I said to you, one of the other words to write down on your notepad were sanctions. Donald Trump adds you and China to his list of trade adversaries. Those are sanctions. That's the big stick. Sanctions is the big stick to bring down the world's economies. Okay? United Kingdom. The UK economy is similar to Germany's, and I won't go through all of that. We'll go to Italy. Growth in Q2 was down 0.1%, down from 0.2% in Q1. Brazil, the largest economy in South America, stagnated with growth at 0.2%, the same as Q1 growth rate. Singapore's economy contracted by 3.3%. It contracted 3.3%. It didn't go up. South Korea's GDP economy shrank 0.4%. Now these numbers don't sound all that big, but understand it's the trending, it's the pattern, it's the downward trending, okay? The Bank of Korea, South Korean Central Bank, on July 19th lowered interest rates from 1.75% to 1.5% to spur growth. That's what's happened here in the United States. Russia, weak consumer spending, constrained oil output due to OPEC and Plus meeting, and low gas demand from Europe will negatively impact its economy for the year. But France, it's mainly the Eurozone slowdown, U.S.-China trade war, the Brexit uncertainty. For Japan, lower global demand due to the trade squabbles could cause its economy to enter a recession this year. I sent you an article about Japan. They are putting out for the first time their own cryptocurrency, and they're going cashless, just like Greece did. And I sent you that article again that I sent to you a week ago regarding Greece mandating 20% of their transactions, somewhere in that frame. Their transactions occur digitally. Japan's following Greece, demanding digital transactions. It is all moving in the direction of digital transformation for 2020. China as well. So let's go to China. This is an article coming to us by Fasil Khan, and China on track to launch the world's first central bank cryptocurrency. Chinese Central Bank, PBOC, People's Bank of China, is getting ready to conduct a real-world trial of digital yuan. While China seems to embrace the emerging technologies wholeheartedly, but on the other hand, actions like banning cryptocurrencies in the country seem to contradict this notion. This is not just restricted to cryptocurrencies, though. China seems to have divergent views on the broader use of technology. China is enacting a two-pronged strategy when it comes to technological adoption. The country has a long history of keeping a tight lid on things, from economic policies to civil liberties to use of technology. Everything is under strict government control. As long as things agree with the government line, it's okay. Otherwise, they are no good. Okay, so we'll move on through some of this background information and go right to blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies, President Xi in October praised the blockchain tech, saying that the country should pounce on this opportunity to advance the digital transformation agenda. Okay, there it is again, folks. I have been seeing more and more articles using this terminology. Digital transformation. That's why I'm highlighting it tonight, okay? This is all setting the stage for Libra. That's what's the undercurrent to everything that I'm sharing with you tonight. Again, President Xi praised the blockchain tech, saying that the country should pounce. Interesting word. That's not a financial term. Pounce on this opportunity to advance the digital transformation agenda. The blockchain-based cryptocurrencies rose sharply in reaction to the statement, but the Chinese authorities were quick to curb the euphoria, saying blockchain should not be equated with cryptocurrencies. Well, that's a very interesting statement, because blockchain only exists because the cryptocurrencies built it. That was the carrot. Remember? We've presented you the full spectrum background on what we're sharing with you tonight. All of 2019 built up the case for what we're sharing with you right now. We gave you the terminology. We gave you the system structures. We gave you how the system was being built piece by piece. Now we're presenting to you how all those pieces are going to be implemented next year. Okay? Let's go on. The decentralized cryptocurrencies remain banned in the country for obvious reasons. The government can't control them. That's why they say that blockchain shouldn't be equated with cryptocurrencies. They want to downplay existing cryptocurrencies in favor of what the government wants to bring in. So here it is. The answer to that has been a central bank digital currency, CBDC, which has been under development in China for several years now. The process, here it is, drum roll, drum roll. The process has accelerated. Have I not said that all year long? The process has accelerated this year, 2019, in the wake of the proposed launch of Libra. There it is. The Chinese, I'm just parenthetically, I'm saying for you here, this is my own commentary and we'll get back to it. The Chinese government, right here, by saying that they're bringing out their own digital currency in the face of Libra being launched, de facto confirmed that Libra will be the one world global currency. China's not trying to displace it. It's not trying to derail Libra. It's not trying to get ahead of Libra. What the government is doing by bringing in their digital currency, which by their own statement they've been in development of for several years now, so has Libra. This digital currency, central bank digital currency from China, will be folded into Libra. How can I say that? Look at what we introduced to you in September about Concordia out of Greece. And the players, the list of players included China as founding members in Libra. That's why I can say that central bank digital currency will be folded into Libra. All the information we've been sharing with you this year allows you to be able to read a paragraph like this, see the red flag words, maybe I should say red star words for China, and be able to pick it apart and see how this fits to Libra. So I'll read that paragraph again now that I've kind of parenthetically taken it apart and giving you some context to it. Let's go back over it. The decentralized cryptocurrencies remain banned in the country for obvious reasons. The government can't control them. The answer to that has been a central bank digital currency, which has been under development in China for several years now. The process has accelerated this year in the wake of the proposed launch of Libra. China fears that even a limited approval of Libra coin with an ecosystem of 2.5 billion users backed by the US dollar. Okay? Let's look at that before I go on any further. Remember, we talked about why Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg was the face of Libra, why it was that he went to Washington to testify. It's because of the users in Facebook, the number of Facebook users. Remember, Facebook is only one of the 28 founding members, of which there will be 100 at some future point. Think Facebook when I read this to you again. China fears that even a limited approval of Libra coin with an ecosystem of 2.5 billion users backed by the US dollar will reinforce the hegemony of the greenback. Okay? What this means when it says the US dollar reinforcing Libra, that is showing you that Libra will be the cryptocurrency of the United States. And because the US dollar itself is still the worldwide reserve currency, even though it's trying to be knocked off that pedestal, because it's still the reserve currency for the world, the petrodollar, it reinforcing, it backing Libra, allows Libra to then become the reserve currency of the world, to be the new petrodollar. Okay? China is not going to be left behind, and they're not going to displace Libra. They are already one of the founding members of Libra. It doesn't say that here, but you know it because I shared it with you in the magazine. Let's continue. Also, the growing adoption of mainstream cryptocurrencies is another worry whereby the government would have little or no way of tracking the decentralized transactions. Let's take that statement apart. What it means is that China, viewing existing cryptocurrencies as something they don't have control over, will therefore outlaw and ban all other cryptocurrencies. First, they will outlaw other cryptocurrencies, as they've already done in their country, to replace it with their central bank digital currency. But that's only a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone towards Libra. Okay? They have to ease this in. Even though it's under acceleration, they have to ease it in. It's step by step towards Libra. Now, what China is doing, other countries are doing. Japan, okay, comes to mind. All right, while the Chinese central bank believes the digital version of the fiat currency would give its people the ability to be a part of the new digital economy, critics believe the central bank digital currency is being created to provide the authorities with yet another surveillance tool. Well, we just said that in the previous article I just read to you about the financial advisory AI tools. Okay? The psychological profile of you. So definitely it will give additional surveillance to the Chinese government. They like that because then they can watch all of the transactions and they can control buying and selling. This is setting up for the mark of the beast. Okay? All right. I won't go through all the details. You can read through the rest of this article if you care to. Let's go to this next one. Rich countries must start planning for a cashless future. Going digital will bring vast rewards, but societies are ill-equipped to deal with the side effects. This comes from The Economist. Okay? I sent this to you as well. For the past 3,000 years, when people thought of money, they thought of cash. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So we go on from there. Countries are eliminating cash at varying speeds, but the direction of travel is clear, and in some cases the journey is nearly complete. In Sweden, the number of retail cash transactions per person has fallen by 80% in the past 10 years. Cash accounts for just 6% of purchases by value in Norway. Britain is probably 4 or 6 years behind the Nordic countries. America is perhaps a decade behind. Outside the rich world, cash is still king. But even there, its dominance is being eroded. In China, digital payments rose from 4% of all payments in 2012 to 34% in 2017. Excuse me, get a drink of water here. Cash is dying out because of two forces. One is demand. Younger customers want payment systems that plug seamlessly into their digital lives. Okay, remember, millennials and Generation Zs, all indoctrinated into technology, no critical thinking, instant satisfaction, gratification, passive receivers of information. They want it in the most convenient manner as possible. Okay? But equally important is that suppliers such as banks and tech firms in those developed markets and telecom companies in emerging ones are developing fast, easy-to-use payment technologies from which they can pull data and pocket the fees. There is a high cost to running the infrastructure behind the cash economy. ATMs, vans carrying notes, tellers who accept coins. Most financial firms are keen to abandon it or to deter old-fashioned customers using healthy fees. Okay? So they're going to make it inconvenient and costly to use the old system, forcing people into the new system. And the new system, these banking institutions can reach out to the underbanked, the unbanked, using technology. They'll use data to build those profiles, to control transactions, and while they control the transactions, they pocket the transaction fees. That brand new, huge, vast market share of transaction fees driven by AI, reaching out to the remainder of the world's population that are unbanked and underbanked. Okay? That's the new gold mine. In the main, the prospect of a cashless economy is excellent news. Okay? In the main, meaning in the big picture, supposedly, in the mainstream, the prospect of a cashless economy is excellent news. Cash is inefficient. In rich countries, minting, sorting, storing, and distributing it is estimated to cost about 0.5% of gross national product. But that does not begin to capture the gains. When payments dematerialize, people and shops are less vulnerable to theft. Okay, so what they're saying is when cash dematerializes, shops are less vulnerable to theft. Governments can keep closer tabs on fraud or tax evasion. Digitalization vastly expands the playground of small businesses and sole traders by enabling them to sell beyond their borders. It also creates a credit history, helping consumers borrow. Yet set against these benefits are a bundle of worries. Electronic payment systems may be vulnerable to technical failures, power blackouts, and cyber attacks. Okay? And eradicating cash, an anonymous payment method, replacing it with a digital system could let governments snoop on people's shopping habits and private titans exploit their personal data. When they say private titans, they mean Facebook and Google and Amazon, okay? And Alibaba. Boy, we talked an awful lot about Alibaba in China. Exploiting personal data and people's shopping habits. See, that's all psychological profiling of people. Okay, here comes the remedies. These problems have three remedies. First, governments need to ensure that central banks' monopoly over coins and notes is not replaced by private monopolies over digital money. Well, guess what, folks? The private monopolies are already in place. They are the founders of Libra. They are in the Concordia organization. Okay? Rather than letting a few credit card firms have a stranglehold on the electronic pipes for digital payments, as America may yet allow, governments must ensure the payments plumbing is open to a range of digital firms which can build services on top of it. They should urge banks to offer cheap, instant bank-to-bank digital transfers between deposit accounts, as in Sweden and the Netherlands. Competition should keep prices low so that the poor can afford most services. And it should also mean that if one firm stumbles, others can step in, making the system resilient. That is all describing blockchain for you, okay? All right, so I'll kind of jump down here. We've made it the point there. The last sentence here, 2 sentences. The rush towards digital money is the result of spontaneous demand and innovation. To pocket all the rewards, governments need to prepare for the day when crumpled banknotes change hands for the last time. All right. They're telling us, folks, plain and simple. They're telling us what is coming. It's already built. It's already set up. People that are reading financial articles like this, they're being told that it's all rosy, basically. That the solution to the problem, currencies cost a lot to print, to transport, to safeguard, that it's old-fashioned and it costs a lot of money to do that. Imagine what the U.S. government, and I don't know the figures, but what the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, which is not the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, though, the Treasury, that is the federal government, the Treasury printing banknotes, what that costs. That, on the surface, looks like a real good reason to go digital. Cost savings, efficiencies, security, safeguarding. And I would agree. But the downside to that we've talked about already extensively, to going digital. Now, this isn't just the words of an old guy who's saying, no, we need to have legacy banking, we need to have cash, we need to have all this. I don't want to do all this stuff. I mean, I can still remember examples of people older than me that have since are now deceased, but saying, I'll never use an ATM machine. That resistance to technology, I understand. But we're looking beyond it just from the standpoint of having to learn a new system, having to adopt new ways. It's beyond that. It's the spiritual aspect of what's going on that we clearly can see. The technology is just the structure. It's just the tools for controlling people in a godless world, in a godless society, in a godless structure, and they're building it themselves. Again, those golden bars in the gilded cage, people are willingly building out. And so you have this real myopic, compartmentalized view of society and the world at large by those that are so entrenched in technology, those so entrenched in the financial world, literally not caring for the price, the cost of building this system. And you and I know that the cost, the price that is to be paid, is their damnation of their souls. Because the cage that they're building requires a mark of the beast. Not to escape the cage, but to function within the cage. Because they're not escaping when they take the mark. In fact, it swings the door shut and seals the lock to their soul. We'll be outside that gilded cage because we know, and we will refuse the mark of the beast. But we know that God will provide for us in making that decision. He will take care of us. Supernaturally, He will take care of us. He will advance our knowledge. He'll advance our spirit. He'll advance our abilities spiritually to exist in this world. As John 14 says, that we'll do even greater things than Christ saying to the disciples, that we, you, he was saying, but meaning us in the future tense, will do greater things than even Jesus Christ. I really don't know what that means in terms of how that's going to manifest, but what it does say to me, and as Kathleen, as we've shared with you, is that God will provide for us supernaturally. We may advance spiritually even in our physical form, even as the temple of the Holy Spirit. We may advance spiritually to where we have very little need for food and water, if any at all. We may be able to multiply food from a single source. We don't know. But it is for us to understand that God does provide for us. And therefore, it takes away the fear in examining the technologies, at looking at articles like this, as understanding from 40,000 feet what is being laid out, and we can see the very near future because of that perspective. We shouldn't be fearful of it. It's miraculous in thinking about how God will take care of us. In the face of all of this advancing technology and this system of control, this system that knows so much about people, it's truly miraculous what God will do to protect and provide for us. And that's really the big takeaway. So let me check the chat room here. If you have questions, happy to take questions in the chat room. I wanted to set aside some time for that tonight. So if you want to go ahead and post them in the chat room, I'll kind of scan through here while you're doing that and see what's been going on. Yep. Alrighty. Alrighty. Well, I'm not seeing any questions coming through. We have quite a few people that are in the background that are listening tonight, and I thank you for joining us tonight. And on that note, while I'm waiting for some questions to come in, I see one from Mr. Wilson. I just want to real quickly just interject. As we move into 2020, I want to ask a favor of you. And I hadn't really discussed this with Kathleen, but with all of you as our friends, I want to ask a favor, and I don't do this very often. Would you please spread the word about what we're presenting here to you? If you would reach out to in your circles of influence, your spheres of influence, if you would make a concerted effort to let other people know about these live streams, Kathleen and I would greatly appreciate. Because I think what we're sharing here is vitally important. And you've said as much back to us, that this is vital information. And many of you have written to us and said that this needs to get out to a bigger audience. And, you know, Doug and I have tried to do that. We've tried social media, but it gets censored. We try as best we can through the limitations in YouTube. But, you know, it's clear that the AI systems, the algorithms, are censoring people like Kathleen and myself and many others in similar venues like us that cover similar topics, and certainly from the Christian perspective, the censorship. The counter to that is you reaching out to your contacts on our behalf and referring us. It's often been said that the best advertising is word of mouth advertising, and I think that that's really all that is available to us now to get this message out there to a larger and larger audience is personal recommendation. And it carries the credibility of your name and your credibility. It carries that when you recommend us. And so we recognize the value of that. I understand what I'm asking of you, and I'm asking a lot of you. But we just don't have much time. We need to warn as many people as we can. Okay? So let me go back to Mr. Wilson in his question before I lose track of it. Let's see where that was. Okay. Will the U.S. start a digital currency? That has been discussed in the testimony by Mark Zuckerberg before the Senate and the House Finance Committee. That question came up about whether the U.S. would put forth its own digital currency. And the Federal Reserve has talked about it. There have been numerous articles. I would recommend that you do a search for Federal Reserve cryptocurrency, and you'll see there are quite a few articles discussing it. But I would underscore this and answer it by saying that since Mark Zuckerberg testified, that has served to leapfrog the implementation of a U.S. digital currency. The timetable keeps accelerating. This is why they said in the first half of 2020 their Libra will be launched. This is why we see Japan and China, for example, bringing forth their example of cryptocurrencies. That's to accelerate things to everybody saying, okay, we've got sovereign cryptocurrencies being proposed or in the near term being adopted, put out there. And the driving of that is places like Japan and Greece just in the last couple of weeks saying that they want to go cashless. They want to move in that direction of digital transactions. In the Greece article I shared with you, they want to tax people who fail, tax penalties who fail to use digital transactions. And I think it was around 30% per annum that they had to without a penalty. The point is it's accelerating so quickly that I don't think the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is a private banking organization, is not part of the federal government, will not put forth a digital currency. Rather, they will simply adopt Libra. And again, as I said earlier, because the U.S. dollar is still the petrodollar, still the reserve currency for the world, the U.S. will flip that dollar into a crypto coin, which will be Libra, because they need to do it quickly. When it's a worldwide reserve currency, any change to that has to be done very quickly. And that's why it, more than China, will lead the way to Libra being accepted, even by China, Japan, others. It will be accepted as the global currency because it needs to be done quickly. What's going to drive that sense of urgency? War in the Middle East, economic collapse. That's why I shared with you those countries that are facing recession right now. Economic collapse worldwide due to war. Debt reset as the solution, near-term solution. But the long-term solution, right on the heels of debt reset, is Libra, with the revealing of the identity of the Antichrist, lying signs and wonders, performing miracles, and the mark of the beast being mandated. Boom, 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 boom. Very quickly. Okay? All righty. Do I have an update on Elon Musk blockchain mega center out in the Burning Man area. Will this line up with the Libra blockchain? Do I have an update on Elon Musk blockchain mega center? Oh, okay. I recall what you're talking about. Blockchain, the company in just outside of Sparks, Nevada, the blockchain company that we talked about 2 years ago, that is next door to Elon Musk's battery manufacturing site, just outside of Sparks, Nevada. I don't have an update on that specific company regarding blockchain, and I'll make a note of that right now, Mr. Wilson, and I'll bring that back to you on Sunday with an answer, or you can email me and I'll give you an answer much sooner. But I'm going to make a note of that right now. Haven't heard much about that blockchain company, but I haven't gone looking at it either. They were the company, you may recall, that had their worldwide rollout in Prague, Czechoslovakia, and Prague historically has been the alchemic center for alchemists, the center back in the Renaissance period for all of that alchemist activity. And so I think for spiritual reasons, they brought out that particular debut in Prague. They should have done it in Nevada, Sparks, Nevada, or Reno, Nevada, which is next door to Sparks. But anyway, I digress. I'll get an update on that for you. Okay. Carol asks, are all the countries going this way? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. There were a few other articles that I didn't share with you this evening that I read this afternoon that I had been saving so that I could read them as background for what I presented to you this evening. That, and again, this sounds like, I'm kind of full of myself, but I could see that they had finally come to the similar or same conclusions that I've presented to you tonight in talking about Libra and talking about going cashless. And in particular, something that one author had cited, and that was the convergence of AI and blockchain. Almost 3 years ago, I presented to you that AI and blockchain would be one and the same, because at that time I presented to you, in order to have a worldwide blockchain system, mark of the beast system, that would control all buying and selling, you had to have a quantum computing system driving that blockchain system worldwide. And in order for that blockchain to function in that quantum computing environment, it had to have as its central control mechanism artificial intelligence. And I presented that to you, that merging of AI and blockchain over 3 years ago with the underpinning of quantum mechanics. And it's published in the Entangled magazine as well. That's a 3-year-old publication now. It's amazing. The time has just really been screaming. But again, as I said early in the live stream this evening, especially for the 2019 issues of Entangled, just go back through them, flip through them quickly. I know most of you look at the e-publication, the e-magazine. Flip through it on your computer and just kind of refresh yourself on the building block process, the terminology, the explanation of the systems that includes AI, quantum computing, all of those advances in those two areas, as well as the advancements in blockchain and the advancements in cryptocurrencies, and explaining how cryptocurrencies operate, how blockchains operate, and who's behind Libra and where it's taking us. So we packed an awful lot into an Entangled and the live streams this year. And the archives, of all the live streams we've done, it boggles my mind going back and looking at all the titles of all the live streams we've done just this year. But I thank the Lord that He has imparted this information through the Holy Spirit to you guys, that you share with us those revelations, and that He has shared with Kathleen and has shared with me, that we bring to you. We pull and coalesce all of this information that you have and we have together. So as a group, we've published Entangled Magazine, and we've been able to present these live streams as a group. Kathleen and I couldn't have done that by ourselves. This has been a group effort, and you've provided the means for us to be able to do this. And we are absolutely grateful for that. So, all right. I read Libra might be in trouble. Your thoughts on that? Well, I have read some of those accounts as well. Or I should say, the majority of the discussion about Libra that have been negative or concerning has been focused on Facebook. They've been attacking Facebook and Facebook's problems that they've had internally with privacy of information, and not wanting this cryptocurrency, therefore, to be controlled by Facebook. I'm almost reluctant to continue to say this, but problem, reaction, solution. They want to create the need for a solution. So what will be the solution in the controversy, the problem of Libra being associated as Facebook's cryptocurrency, which it isn't? What's the solution to that contrived controversy problem? Is to say, oh, well, it's not just Libra being associated with Facebook. It's all of these other banks, businesses. Remember, I said that there's a transition process in which first they bring in the founders, 28, and there will be 100 at some point. Then they bring in the business sector where the transactions will take place to get them to back Libra, and that's already taken place. And behind those merchants all agreeing to recognize and accept Libra are the banks. So the solution that will be presented to the controversy over Libra will be the revealing of all the supporters of Libra. We've already presented to you through revealing Concordia and all of those members of the Libra group, Libra Association within Concordia, all of the participating presidents of countries, political leaders in the countries, banking institutions and their leaders, business sector leaders, academia, the leaders in academia that are all on board with Libra. All of those that we've already shared with you, that's what's going to be revealed early next year to divert people away from thinking that Libra is Facebook only, and reveal and go, no, here's the solution. It's not just Facebook. You can trust all of these players and participants that are behind Libra. Therefore, they'll reveal all of those participants. That's their solution. But they have to, in the near term, create the problem to get the demand built up for a solution. And so the world will embrace all of these players that are in Concordia and say, wow, that's great. You guys all are endorsing Libra. We commend you. We trust you. You have the credibility more than Facebook, which has very little credibility. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay? So, question is bottom up or top down? The change? And also another question is how to picture this. Well, to picture this is that it's going to happen so fast that people won't have much time to react to it. But it will happen so fast because it's offered as a solution to worldwide economic collapse. Peace and safety. This is going to be rolled out with the Jared Kushner, President Trump deal of the century peace plan in the Middle East. There's going to be sudden destruction. They're going to roll out all of this. They're going to say peace and safety, but we know from Scripture comes sudden destruction. Then that leads to debt reset, cryptocurrency, all of that stuff, but it'll all happen so quickly, and there will be so much demand for peace and safety and economic stability that people will demand that immediate change over to the one world global cryptocurrency. That's the picture. Is it top down or bottom up? It is top down, because this is all being driven by an agenda. At the top of this is Satan. I should say bottom up because it's Satan, but you get what I mean. It is all the pagan worship of the technology that Satan is pushing down on people. It is top down. It has to come from a single source. In this case, it's coming from the source of the Antichrist, from Satan himself, pushing it down on humanity, and the mechanism of deception that does that. Do I think a quantum computer can fathom the bottom of the pi ratio, or is the ratio bottomless too, and does pi reflect some of God's mind? Very good question, Andy. It's kind of like the discussion of the quantum supremacy from Google and the doubling of the doubling of the exponential, and the endless string past the decimal point of numbers that are doubling and doubling into infinity, in our whole discussion of the bottomless pit mathematically modeled by an infinite string of numbers past the decimal point, which is exactly what pi does. So, can a quantum computer fathom the infinite? No. Because the infinite is God's mind. It can continue to add numbers to that string beyond 3.14 in the case of pi, or in the case of the algorithm of demonstrating quantum supremacy in one specific, very narrowly focused problem, comparing a classical supercomputer to a quantum computer, and the quantum computer taking 200 minutes to arrive at a solution, and a projection on the part of the classical supercomputer taking 10,000 years to arrive at the solution. Thus, in that narrow test, it was supreme over the classical computer. That producing for our purposes as humans, an infinite string of numbers past the decimal point. But a quantum computer can certainly produce what appears to us as a human as an infinite string of integers. But as Aristotle pointed out, you cannot define the infinite, because if you define the infinite, you make it finite. And Plato said that the environment, the universe, is finite. Well, that's to put a limit on the mind of God by Plato, whereas on the mind of God, according to Aristotle, it's infinite. In God's mind, because we, with a puny little human brain, we cannot conceive of the infinite. We can't define it. So an endless string of numbers being infinite, we can't find the endpoint, even with a quantum computer, because a quantum computer cannot know the mind of God, much as you said, Andy, and I thank you for the question. All righty. Yes. Michael, is pi bottomless in base 10, but it is bottomless in base 10, but in other bases? Well, you can go with base 2 mathematics, the binary. You can go to ternary, you can go to quaternary, you can go to base 10, base 12, base 60. Choose your poison. But all of them are finite. They're not truly bottomless because they're man-constructed mathematical systems. Therefore, they're finite. If they were God-constructed mathematical systems, then they would be infinite. But we don't have, as humans, the capacity for a God-based mathematical system. There's the discussion that's similar to that, is that God is a code. Someone sent me an article about that I'll get, or a website that I'll get back to and look at, sent to me just before the live stream. But this whole idea that we're in a digital simulation and that God is a digital construct and is therefore a code, God is a code, and things like that, that's man grasping at the infinite with the limitations of the human mind. So any mathematical based system is going to be, for human purposes, is going to be finite. Alrighty. Any other questions? Libra may be launched and then hacked to make the mark mandatory. Not sure if hacking of Libra, well, I see where you're going. There could be a purported hacking of Libra, and then the solution to that problem, it's kind of like the discussion of the universal voter ID, where you have so many people that are voting illegally, false IDs and things like that. The discussion of having a voter ID for combating the solution to the problem of voter fraud. I could see that scenario with Libra, that they could claim that it was hacked, and therefore the solution is everybody has to have a mark, kind of like voter ID. I agree with you that that scenario very, very well could happen. Kind of the ultimate problem reaction solution Hegelian dialectic scenario. That's very good. I hadn't considered that. I would couch that, however, to say that, again, it would be a purported, it would be a made up, it would be a fantasy hack. Because quantum computing through AI providing the cryptographic encryption for Libra is already unhackable. I can say that because I presented this, 2.5 years ago about quantum computers and hacking quantum communications, encrypted, quantum entangled communications. The nature of quantum computing from the quantum mechanical standpoint is that if a quantum computer senses an attack, it cuts off the entanglement occurring in the communication system. Therefore, to try to hack into and decrypt the encrypted communication that occurs through quantum entanglement, the entanglement gets broken off the moment the quantum computing system producing the entangled communication system that's fully encrypted breaks the entanglement. So to be able to hack into this with existing technologies based on quantum computing can't happen. But a fantasy hack presented to the unknowing masses certainly could be foisted upon humanity, who would then say, oh, that's terrible, we demand a solution. Fine, take this mark. I completely agree with you that that could be feasible. Okay? All righty. So, Mr. Wilson, that's very good. All right. Very cool. You guys are really sharp. I like it. That's why I like engaging. We like engaging with you. You guys are really sharp. You do your own research, and you obviously are good critical thinkers because you ask good critical questions. Okay, just share your videos and should tell them to watch, and what should we tell them to do? That's the question Joyce is asking in terms of sharing. What I would recommend is pick out 2 or 3 videos that are on my YouTube channel, because I took a whole bunch going back to 2018 of our live streams that were only available to patrons, and I made them public on YouTube because YouTube was threatening to shut down channels if they were not commercially viable by December 10th. And in order to make my channel commercially viable, meaning that there were sufficient numbers of videos on my channel that YouTube could put their own ads on. I wasn't putting any ads on, but they could put their own ads on my videos, our live streams. That would keep my channel in that category of being commercially viable. So I went ahead and made many of those videos public. If you would go through and just pick out what you think would be relevant to whoever you're referring the channel to, pick out 2 or 3 and just say, go watch these. Yeah, they're 2 hours long, but just go watch these. And that would be enough. You wouldn't have to get into a lot of explanations and stuff. Just let them and encourage them. Go through the channel and look at all of the topic titles of all those YouTube videos that I've made public. Just reading the titles without even watching a video, reading through those titles, they'll get a sense of what it is we cover here. And we cover a broad spectrum of topics. So just recommend to them, go look at the video titles, and then maybe take a couple of interest to them that piques their interest and recommend that they watch them. So good question, Joyce. I thank you for that. All right. Alrighty. Okay, well, we're coming up to almost 2 hours, so again, I'm respectful of your time, and I thank you for joining me here, and Kathleen in the chat room. She's in her PJs, as she has said to you. It's still the holidays, okay? I want to thank you all for, again, your emails of Christmas wishes and prayers, and we thank you for those. And again, our Christmas message from Sunday that I'll repeat here is that we are absolutely humbled and grateful to be in this friendship with you and to share the information and share our personal stories that you share with us and that we with you, and certainly the personal story that Kathleen shared on Sunday with you. And we're privileged to have friends like you, and we take that very seriously, okay? So, thank you very much. God bless you all, and Lord willing, Kathleen and I will be back together with you on Sunday, and she has a whole lot of really cool information on geomancy that she wants to share with you that relates to what we talked about tonight. It all fits together. It's all as part of God's plan. So God bless you. Thank you, and good night.